Welcome back to On Main Street with Rick Amato. My next guest has joined me before, but I wanted to bring him back because his story is remarkable. He's a former Fortune 100 top executive. He is someone that had a near-death experience on July 7th of 2007. In other words, 777. Uh, he's now a pastor in Ohio, and he has a book titled All for His Glory. I am always fascinated, ladies and gentlemen, when I meet someone, speak with someone who has experienced a near death experience. Let's welcome back to the show former Marine, former Fortune 100 executive, Pastor David Scarlett. Pastor Scarlett, good to have you with us. Take us through that near death experience, if you would, please.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me back. It's a blessing. It was on the seventh day of the seventh month of '07. I took some toxin in a hot dog. It was botulism toxin, and it was Friday the 13th. They didn't know what it was. My entire central nervous system started to shut down,
Hmm.
and they rushed me to the hospital. And on Friday the 13th, they put me into the Cleveland Clinic. And that night I died. That wasn't a near death experience that first time, but they did save my life at the Cleveland Clinic. They tried to stabilize me. The only way you can survive with botulism toxin is if you have a respirator, because it shuts down your breathing, your eating, your smelling, your walk, everything shuts down. So they got me stable, and then they tried to pull the respirator off once I was stable a couple days after when they lost me the first time. And that's when I had my first of two near-death experiences. Never forget the panic and the look of the Cleveland Clinic doctors. It's the best hospital in the world. And when you see the Cleveland Clinic doctors panic, you know something's not right. And when they pulled that away for me to breathe, it immediately went bad. I saw the panic. And you'd think when you can't breathe that I would have pain, I would have anxiety, but I didn't. I had complete joy, peace. There was a light. There was no pain. I was taken up into the realm of heaven. I saw just the beauty of heaven. It was photographs of a TV or a technology just doesn't exist even today. It was absolutely clear. Everything was smelt better, looked better. It was just absolute perfection. But the key thing was the sense of peace, the sheer sense of peace and overwhelming love. And then the Lord showed me these mahogany pictures of my entire life. And they were slow pictures from the time I was an infant every year up until the time I was 39. And what was unique about those pictures is that there was no sin in those pictures. And these pictures were never taken on earth during my life while I was living. And so one thing he did tell me later on is that I didn't do anything for him in those pictures. My report card was empty. And he said after this, he says, I'm going to take you back and you're going to start a ministry called By My Name, His Glory. And I was like, a ministry? I'm executive of Fortune 100 company. I don't know anything about ministry, but I still couldn't talk yet. He brought me back. And the first thing I thought about is, wait a minute, I was in heaven, but I didn't see Jesus. And I couldn't talk. So I prayed that through. Why couldn't I see Jesus? I want to see Jesus. And before I even got that prayer out, there he was at the end of my bed, just glowing and radiating while I was awake, back into my body. Our Messiah, the Christ, was standing there, never said a word, but didn't need to. I just had that joy, that peace, that shalom and love back again. And then, a long story short, from there, they stabilized me again. I had 5 surgeries of bleeding stomach because they had to feed me through a feeding tube. Woke up in the middle of a operation while the Cleveland Clinic was operating on my stomach. Collapsed lung, pneumonia, you name it. We took 1 step forward, 3 steps back, and then they finally got me stabilized again. And this time, all the Cleveland Clinic doctors, there's about 30 in my ICU room because they wanted to make sure this went perfect. And the reason I know that is because I had a second near-death experience. And as soon as they pulled the air for me to breathe on my own again, the sirens went off again, the beeping of the machines, and immediately they start panicking. Come back, come back, come back is what they were shouting. What was unique, though, is I was above them, looking down, and I could see the panic on the doctors' faces. And again, I didn't feel any pain, any anxiety that I couldn't breathe in the natural. And I said to the Lord, why are they panicking? I feel perfectly fine. I feel good. I feel the joy of the Lord. And he said, I'm going to bring you back, and you're going to start a ministry called By My Name, His Glory. He brought me back. And I remember to your point earlier, one of the nurses came out and I overheard her. You got to be careful in a hospital if you're a nurse, because doctors and nurses, the patient can hear you. I could hear, but everything else didn't work. And she said, "This guy claims he had a near-death experience and he went to heaven." And I remember watching the two doctors just turn and look right at that. She was one of the head nurses at the Cleveland Clinic, and they said, "I don't know where he went, but I can assure you." And both of them said the same thing. We saw a light above the ER, or above the ICU, and something happened that we've never seen before.
Now, how did the nurse say? When did the nurse claim this? During this whole process? I mean, how would she have heard you say that?
She was around the room. She was one of the head nurses for the ICU. So she'd check in and she saw both, the first time I died, which was no near death experience, but the first near death experience, they recorded that. She heard talking to family, and then she witnessed the last one where the doctors turned and said, "Yes, we saw it. We saw a light at the top of the ceiling."
So you had told someone that you had a near death experience?
Yeah, when I came back, my wife was there, my mother was there, and I had to tell them I just saw Jesus and I just went to heaven, because I'm the least likely person on the face of the earth that would say such a thing. I was a 911 Christian, but I was never into really the miracles and signs and wonders of the Bible and near death. I didn't pay attention to that type of thing until I experienced it. And so when I told somebody like my wife and my mother, they took it very serious, because not something I would normally say.
Now, here's what I want to get your take on. Non-believers, atheists in a medical field will say, well, what happens is we will see Muslims have a near-death experience and experience seeing Muhammad. We'll see others have a near-death experience and they'll say they saw Buddha. Christians will say they saw God or Jesus. Um, and it's just the brain playing out what the brain has been taught its whole life, and it's probably an evolutionary process where the brain is telling the person, even though you're dying, it's going to be okay. When you hear that, what is your response to that?
Well, the key is probably that they're an atheist. They don't believe, and their science does match up to what the supernatural in the Bible is. I can't talk about anybody else's. I have studied near-death experiences after I came back, because I was curious, and everyone that I studied was very similar to what I saw. Matter of fact, Colton, the boy that went to heaven, and they had that movie. The Jesus that he saw was the exact Jesus I saw. I remember a little girl had a painting of the Jesus, and because people always ask me, "What did he look like? What did he look like?" And it was just like Colton. I was going through a bookstore with my wife one day, and there it was. That was the picture that this little girl painted for Colton. And I said, "That is the same Jesus that I saw." So all I can do is experience what I personally did. Yes, the first time I went into heaven, I experienced heaven, but when I came back, I was alert, and Jesus was there. And then I had another one where doctors would see, they don't know what happened to me, but they did confirm that two doctors saw a light. And it was so compelling that what those doctors said, that head nurse never said another word again about it.
What did Jesus look like? I mean, we don't have a picture to show, but are you able to describe it in words?
It's like the book of Revelation coming alive to you. He just radiated this white. And again, he didn't say anything, but it was just radiate of this beautiful white, but he had these piercing blue eyes. But the main thing that I witnessed or experienced was his overwhelming love and peace that he gave. Again, he never said a word to me. The Lord honored me by saying, I prayed, "Can I see Jesus?" I didn't see him in heaven, and there he was.
Do you have any guesstimations on why some people will experience a near-death experience while others may be close to death and be saved but not experience a near-death experience?
Yeah, I think it's based on what God's plan is for people in their life, and what he sees. He sees the beginning and sees the end, but he also sees the heart. And even though we may have, some bad stuff in our life, like King David, he committed murder, he committed adultery, but God looked at his perfect heart because God wiped that away once he repented of his iniquity. And I think that's the same way he's restored me. I was a broken person. I'm still a work in progress, but he knew my heart, that my heart was for him, and it would be for him, and it would compel me to do what I'm doing today, helping try to bring in 1 billion souls to our King of Kings and Lord of Hosts.
Do you have any theory on why those of a different faith, not faith, but outside of Christianity, as I'm told and have read, that see a different figure?
I don't know about them. I'd be curious to see what their beliefs were beforehand, but I have studied several cases where Muslims have gone to an experience. It's happening today, left and right in Iran. The underground church is seeing signs and wonders of Christ. Yeah, they're not dying, but many of them have seen Christ before death and came back. There's actually been two situations where Muslims went to hell and claimed that Muhammad was in hell and said, I lied, and went back. And then they gave their life to Christ.
Wow. Now that you bring that up, I have seen stories of Muslims seeing Jesus in a near-death experience as well. Uh, we are about out of time, Pastor Scarlett. Any final comments you'd like to share with us?
Well, I share to the people that you don't have to eat a bag chili dog and go die and go to heaven. God has a purpose for each and every one of you, and we're in that time where you see the world seems like it's melting down, but it's the opposite. We're in the billion soul harvest, and the Lord wants to use you for your purpose. Each and every one of you have a purpose. It's up for us to take that purpose and be activated for such a time as this.
Well, let me ask you one more, but based upon what you said, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask, and I don't want to assume anything. Do you have a belief, quote insight? Uh, uh, Trying to find another description, but you get the idea on the second coming of when that would occur.
Yeah, we don't know the day or the hour, but we do know by what Christ taught us in Matthew 24, the birth pains. There's no question we are in the pains, and we are in what's called the day of the Lord. There's two key things that have not happened yet that have to happen before he came in Scripture. That's the Joel 2, Acts 2. That's the great revival, the billion soul harvest, as some people call it. Jesus said that also in Matthew 24. The gospel has to be preached from east to west and north to south before my coming. And with technology, we were never able to do that until right now. We are now in the process through technology, internet, low orbit satellites, that we can now get the gospel to Jesus Christ from east to west and north to south. I do know with my connections to Israel, we are on the brink of building the third temple. That is another requirement for the book of Revelation and the tribulation period. The third temple will have to be built, and every element of the third temple for the first time since even before Jesus is ready to be put in place.
All right. Well, I appreciate that information. And Pastor Scarlett, I thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a blessing.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Pastor David Scarlett. Again, folks, his book is called All for His Glory. Again, we appreciate you joining us and hearing your story. Back with more of On Main Street with Rick Amato right after this.